There is a food growing in Buddhist monastery kitchens across Asia that tears apart like chicken breast. Laboratory analysis confirms it contains more umami compounds than beef. Chefs at high-end restaurants pay $18 per pound for it. Food scientists call it the closest plant-based match to animal muscle fiber. It grows in a laundry basket filled with straw. Harvest every 10 days. When you cook it, your kitchen smells like steak. If you have ever wanted to grow your own protein at home, you are in the right place. Subscribe and welcome to Garden Explained with Harry. Walk into any grocery store today. The refrigerated section displays packages of plant-based meat alternatives priced at $9 to $12 per pound. Beyond Meat, Impossible Burger. These companies raise billions of dollars in venture capital to engineer protein that mimics animal flesh. Consumers pay premium prices trusting that laboratory formulations deliver superior results. They never question whether a simpler option has existed for over 1,000 years. In the mountain temples of China, Buddhist monks have maintained strict vegetarian diets since the 5th century. No meat, no fish, no animal products of any kind. Yet these monks perform physical labor. They trained in martial arts. They needed protein to sustain their bodies through decades of monastic life. Temple cooks solved this problem with a single organism. They called it pingu, the flat mushroom. We call it the oyster mushroom. The choice was not random. Chinese temple cooks experimented with dozens of fungi over generations. They tested texture, they tested flavor absorption, and they tested how each variety responded to different cooking methods. The oyster mushroom won. It tears into strips like chicken breast. It absorbs seasonings and sauces like animal tissue does. It develops browning and caramelization when exposed to high heat. It satisfies in a way that other vegetables cannot. In Japan, the same mushroom is called hirataki. Temple cuisine in Kyoto has featured this ingredient since the Heian period, which began in 794 and lasted until 1185. Over 800 years of continuous culinary tradition preceded the first Western scientific study. The monks were conducting the longest food trial in human history. The science came much later. In 2015, researchers published findings in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry analyzing the complete nutritional profile of Pleurotus austriatus. The results confirmed what temple cooks already knew. Oyster mushrooms contain 15 to 25% protein by dry weight. They provide all 9 essential amino acids that human bodies cannot synthesize. The protein digestibility corrected amino acid score reaches 0.69. For comparison, eggs score 1.0, beef scores 0.92. A mushroom growing on dead wood approaches the protein quality of animal flesh. But protein content alone does not explain why cooked oyster mushrooms smell like steak. That answer required different instruments. In 2017, food chemists published research in the Journal of Food Science, identifying 47 distinct volatile compounds released when oyster mushrooms meet high heat. The primary compound is 1-octan-3-ol, sometimes called mushroom alcohol. Human noses detect this molecule at concentrations of parts per billion. It triggers immediate recognition, the smell of mushrooms cooking. The more interesting compounds form during the Maillard reaction. When you sear an oyster mushroom at temperatures above 150 degrees Celsius, proteins and sugars combine to create new molecules. These are the same browning compounds that form when you grill a ribeye steak. The same molecules, the same chemical reactions, the same aroma filling your kitchen. Researchers at Wageningen University in the Netherlands conducted sensory analysis in 2020. They prepared oyster mushrooms using standard cooking techniques and asked subjects to rate the texture. The results showed 78% similarity to chicken breast and 65% similarity to beef. The fibrous structure of mushroom flesh creates a tear pattern that matches animal muscle fibers. Unlike tofu or seitan, oyster mushrooms contain chitin in their cell walls. This provides resistance. This provides chew. This provides the satisfying texture that plant proteins typically lack. Umami, the 5th taste, is the savory depth that makes certain foods irresistible. Researchers measured free glutamic acid content in oyster mushrooms at 50 to 70 milligrams per 100 grams. Beef contains 33 milligrams per 100 grams. The mushroom contains more of the compound responsible for meaty flavor than actual meat does. Temple cooks in Song Dynasty China understood this without mass spectrometers. They called oyster mushrooms nature's flavor enhancer. The cultivation method those monks used has survived into the modern era. Traditional Asian growers placed oyster mushroom spawn on beds of rice straw contained in woven bamboo baskets. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization documented these techniques in technical papers published throughout the 1990s. Researchers studying contamination rates found that woven containers reduced mold problems by 23% compared to solid plastic alternatives. The gaps in the weave provide passive air exchange. Carbon dioxide escapes. Fresh oxygen enters. The mushroom mycelium breathes. You do not need bamboo baskets imported from Asia. You need a plastic laundry basket, the woven mesh style, not the solid kind. Choose the kind with gaps between the plastic strips. It typically costs $5 to $8 at any department store. This single purchase replicates the function of traditional cultivation containers. The substrate comes from agricultural waste, typically wheat straw or oat straw. One bale costs $8 to $12 at farm supply stores or from local farmers. That single bale provides enough material for 10 to 15 baskets. Your cost per basket drops below $1 for substrate. The living component is oyster mushroom spawn. This is mycelium grown on grain or wooden dowels. One bag costs $15 to $25 from online suppliers and inoculates 4 to 6 baskets. Divide that cost across your baskets, and each one requires $4 to $6 worth of spawn. Total investment per basket runs $5 to $7. Total yield per basket runs 3 to 5 pounds of fresh mushrooms across multiple harvests. Your cost per pound of homegrown meat substitute falls between $1.50 and $2.30. Fresh oyster mushrooms retail at $12 to $18 per pound. Organic varieties reach $22 to $28 per pound. You save 85 to 90% by growing your own. The process begins with straw preparation. Cut or break your straw into 3 to 4 inch lengths. Shorter pieces provide more surface area for the mycelium to colonize. Fill a large pot or container with water and heat it to 160 to 180 degrees Fahrenheit. This temperature range is critical. Research from Penn State University, published in 2018, confirmed that this heat level kills competing molds and bacteria without sterilizing the substrate completely. Some beneficial microorganisms survive, and they help protect against contamination later. Submerge your cut straw in hot water. Maintain the temperature for 60 to 90 minutes. Then drain the straw thoroughly. The moisture level matters enormously. Grab a handful of straw and squeeze it firmly. A few drops of water should emerge. Not a stream, not a flood, just a few drops. If water pours out, the straw is too wet. Spread it on a clean surface and let it dry for 30 minutes, then test again. You will now build the basket. You may line the interior with a thin plastic bag if you want extra moisture retention. Poke holes in the bag at 1-inch intervals to allow air exchange. Layer 2 inches of prepared straw across the bottom. Sprinkle spawn across this layer. Add another 2 inches of straw and sprinkle more spawn. Continue this layering until the basket is full. Your spawn to substrate ratio should be 10 to 15% by weight. Finish with a layer of straw only. This protects the uppermost spawn from drying out. Place your basket in a location with stable temperature between 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. A closet works. A basement works. A spare room works. Avoid direct sunlight during this colonization phase. Cover the basket loosely with plastic to maintain humidity. Do not seal it completely. The mycelium needs to breathe. Within 5 to 7 days, you will see white thread-like growth appearing on the straw. This is healthy mycelium colonizing the substrate. The white spreads over the following week. By day 10 to 14, the entire basket should appear white throughout. Your substrate has been colonized. Watch for colors other than white during this period. Green indicates trichoderma mold, the most common contaminant in mushroom cultivation. Black indicates bacterial infection. Orange or pink suggest other fungal competitors. Small patches of contamination during early colonization may be overcome by healthy mycelium. If contamination covers more than 20% of the surface, discard the basket contents and start fresh with new materials and better sanitation. Once colonization completes, you initiate fruiting. This requires changing the environmental conditions. Move your basket to a cooler location. Temperature should drop to 55 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit. This shift signals autumn conditions to the fungal organism. The mycelium responds by producing mushrooms. Humidity becomes critical now. Maintain 85 to 95% relative humidity around your basket. Mist with a spray bottle 3 to 4 times daily. Alternatively, construct a humidity tent by draping clear plastic loosely over the basket. Fresh air must circulate. Remove the plastic cover or position a small fan on a low setting nearby. Carbon dioxide accumulates in still air and prevents proper mushroom formation. Provide light. Oyster mushrooms need a light signal to trigger pinning. Indirect natural light from a window works. 12 hours of fluorescent or LED light, followed by 12 hours of darkness works. You are not trying to fuel photosynthesis. Mushrooms do not photosynthesize. You are providing an environmental cue that tells the organism conditions favor reproduction. Within 3 to 5 days of initiating fruiting conditions, pins appear. These are tiny bumps emerging from gaps in your basket weave. These bumps enlarge daily. Clusters form. The distinctive oyster shell shape develops. Caps fan outward. Within 5 to 7 days of pinning, your mushrooms reach harvest size. Harvest when the cap edges are still slightly curved downward or have just flattened. Do not wait until the edges turn upward. That indicates spore release has begun. Flavor and texture decline after spore release. Twist the entire cluster and pull it from the substrate in one piece. Cutting leaves stumps that can rot and invite contamination. Your first flush yields 1 to 2 pounds of fresh mushrooms, but the basket is not finished. Maintain humidity. Reduce misting to once or twice daily. The mycelium rests and gathers energy. Within 7 to 10 days, new pins emerge. This second flush often equals or exceeds the first in total weight. A third flush follows 7 to 10 days after that. Total yield across all flushes reaches 3 to 5 pounds per basket. The harvest cycle validates the title of this video. First flush occurs 10 to 14 days post-inoculation. Second flush follows 7 to 10 days later. Third flush follows 7 to 10 days after that. Research from the University of Kentucky Agricultural Extension, published in 2021, documented these exact intervals across hundreds of cultivation trials. Harvest every 10 days is not marketing language. It is biological reality. Now multiply your system. 6 baskets in rotation means continuous harvests. Stagger your inoculation dates by 10 days. When basket 1 finishes its third flush, basket 4 enters its first. Fresh oyster mushrooms every 10 days, year-round, regardless of season or grocery store availability. Annual yield from a 6-basket rotation reaches 75 to 100 pounds of fresh mushrooms. Annual material cost runs $30 to $42. Annual retail equivalent value exceeds $900. Net savings approaches $850 or more, depending on local prices. The environmental calculation matters too. Researchers published life cycle analysis in the International Journal of Life Cycle Assessment in 2019. Home mushroom cultivation produces 2.5 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent per kilogram of protein produced. Beef production generates 27 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent per kilogram of protein. Commercial mushroom farming produces 3.8 kilograms. Home cultivation cuts emissions by 35% compared to buying mushrooms at the store. Transportation eliminated, refrigeration eliminated, plastic packaging eliminated. The savings seem obvious. The method is documented in peer-reviewed research. The technique is over 1,000 years old. Why does this knowledge remain obscure? The answer lies in economic incentives. The plant-based meat market reached $7.9 billion in 2024, according to Grandview Research. Impossible Foods raised over $2 billion in venture capital. Beyond Meat completed an initial public offering that valued the company above $10 billion. These valuations depend on continued consumer purchasing. They depend on customers buying products month after month. year after year. A laundry basket cannot be patented. Straw cannot be trademarked. Traditional cultivation techniques exist in the public domain. No investor earns returns on knowledge that requires no recurring payment. The economic structures that fund research and marketing have no interest in promoting methods that eliminate their revenue streams. Research funding follows commercial potential. Pharmaceutical and food technology companies fund studies on proprietary formulations they can protect with intellectual property. They do not fund studies on techniques that anyone can replicate in their basement. Academic researchers pursue grants from available sources. The sources favor interventions that generate returns on investment. The knowledge exists. Search agricultural databases and you find decades of cultivation research. But this research appears in technical journals written for farming extension workers. It does not appear in mainstream publications. It does not receive marketing budgets. Information that generates no profit receives no promotion. Traditional cultivation documentation remains largely untranslated. Japanese growers published their methods in Japanese. Korean cultivators documented techniques in Korean. Chinese agricultural stations recorded findings in Mandarin. Western consumers never encountered this information because no economic entity benefited from translating it. The temple cooks who perfected oyster mushroom cultivation never filed patents. They never sought venture capital. They passed knowledge through kitchen apprenticeships, master to student, generation to generation. The method continues through practice, not through commerce. One laundry basket, one bale of straw, one bag of spawn, 10 days to your first harvest. Protein content matching poultry. Umami compounds exceeding beef. The aroma of searing steak rising from a fungus you cultivated yourself. Each harvest teaches you more. Each cycle builds skill. Each basket represents independence from supply chains that profit from your repeated purchasing. The compounds that create meaty flavor develop in mushrooms grown by complete beginners. The texture that satisfies forms in mushrooms cultivated on agricultural waste. The monastery tradition never disappeared. It waited in temple kitchens, in agricultural extension papers, and in technical journals that nobody translated for general audiences. It waited for someone to explain that the materials are cheap, the method is simple, and the knowledge belongs to everyone willing to learn. Now you know. The meat substitute that venture-backed food companies cannot improve upon grows on straw in laundry baskets. The protein that Buddhist monks relied upon for centuries develops in your home in under 2 weeks. The 1,000-year tradition continues in your hands. Subscribe to Garden Explained with Harry and watch the next video to discover what else you can grow at home.